Somewhere under your kitchen sink right now, there's a slow drain you've poured money into, and it's still slow. You've bought the orange bottle, maybe twice, maybe every few months like clockwork. And every time it clears for a week, maybe two, and then it starts again. That low gurgling resistance that tells you the problem was never actually solved. What if I told you that the problem was never meant to be solved? Not by them, anyway. Drano has one job, and it deliberately does that job halfway. That's not an accident. That's the business model. Think about it from a pure revenue standpoint. If one application of something cleared your kitchen drain permanently, as in you never thought about that pipe again for the next 20 years, how many bottles does Drano sell? The answer is 1, maybe 0, because word gets out and people stop buying entirely. So the question isn't whether they could make something that works forever. The question is whether they'd ever want to. Here's what Drano's sodium hydroxide formula actually does. It generates heat, a lot of it, and that heat dissolves the organic matter sitting in the top layer of buildup, grease, soap scum, food particles, hair. It burns through it. And for about 10 days, water flows freely and you feel like you solved something. But the pipe wall itself, the layer of congealed grease that's been coating the inside of that pipe like a cast iron skillet that was never cleaned, well, that layer is still there. The lye didn't touch it. The lye never touches it, because the reaction happens too fast and too shallow. You cleared a temporary hole through the soft stuff. The structural buildup, still there. And every time warm, soapy dishwater flows past it, a new layer adds on. 6 weeks later, you're back at the hardware store. That part made me genuinely angry when I understood it. Not because it's some elaborate scheme. It's simpler and more boring than that. It's just that the chemistry of a permanent solution requires a different approach entirely. And that approach happens to be cheap, old, and not ownable. You can't patent it. You can't trademark it. So nobody's going to fund a commercial for it. In 1938, city engineers in Philadelphia were dealing with the same grease and soap clog problem at industrial scale. Thousands of restaurant drain lines feeding into municipal pipes. The grease loads coming out of commercial kitchens were overwhelming standard drain maintenance schedules. A chemist working for the city's public works department started experimenting with oxidative cleaning compounds, specifically pure oxygen-based powders. Not because he read about them in a trade journal, but because he was watching laundry operations use them to break down organic staining on fabric. He made a logical leap. If it dissolves fat-based staining in cloth fibers at low temperature, what does it do inside a grease-coated pipe? The results changed the city's entire drain maintenance protocol for the next 3 decades. Municipal maintenance crews were using this powder to flush commercial kitchen drain lines every 60 days, and the pipes stayed clear. Not temporarily clear. Functionally clean. The grease couldn't reattach at the molecular level the way it could after a lye treatment, because the oxidation process didn't just remove the clog, it changed the surface chemistry of the pipe wall itself. Grease lost its grip. This knowledge didn't disappear because it stopped working. It disappeared because municipal applications and household retail are 2 entirely different markets. The city of Philadelphia didn't write a press release. The compound moved quietly through industrial maintenance circles, janitorial supply companies, commercial kitchen equipment services, institutional cleaning operations, and simply never made the jump to a consumer product. And by the time Drano had shelf presence in every grocery store in America, the conversation was already over. There was no room on the shelf and no advertising budget behind the thing that actually worked. Here's what Drano's chemistry does, and more importantly, what it can't do. Sodium hydroxide is a base, a strong one. When it contacts organic matter, it saponifies fats, converts them into a soap-like compound. And that process generates heat. The heat accelerates the dissolution. It's genuinely effective at blasting through a fresh, soft clog. The problem is the word blasting. It's a violent, fast reaction that doesn't have time to penetrate. Imagine trying to clean a cast iron skillet by pouring boiling water through it. The water moves fast, it's hot, it clears whatever's loose, but the seasoned layer, the stuff that's been baked on over months of cooking, that doesn't move. You need something that dwells, something that seeps in and oxidizes the fat at the molecular level rather than burning through the top and moving on. And here's the part about Drano nobody puts on the label. Sodium hydroxide is caustic enough to damage certain types of plastic pipe with repeated use. Not dramatically, not immediately. Over years of applications, it softens PVC, can warp ABS fittings, and if you have older pipes under that sink, it accelerates corrosion at joint connections. You're not just buying a temporary fix. You're potentially degrading the actual plumbing infrastructure every time you use it. The temporary solution has a long-term cost built right into it. Peroxygen chemistry works on a completely different principle. Instead of a base that burns through, you have an oxidizing compound that releases active oxygen when it contacts water. That oxygen attacks the carbon bonds in fat molecules, not the surface of the fat, the bonds themselves. It's the difference between spraying a greasy pan with hot water versus soaking it overnight in a degreaser. The grease doesn't get pushed aside, it gets broken down at a chemical level into water-soluble compounds that rinse away cleanly. And because the reaction is slower and sustained, it keeps working for hours, not minutes, it penetrates the buildup on the pipe wall, not just the soft matter sitting in the center. After that oxidation cycle, the pipe wall is genuinely clean. Not momentarily clear, clean. And the reason clogs don't return at the same rate is that grease needs a textured, fatty surface to adhere to. A clean, oxidized pipe wall doesn't give grease the same purchase. You've changed the environment, not just removed the immediate blockage. The powder is called sodium percarbonate. And before you say you've never heard of it, you have, because it's the active ingredient in OxyClean, sold in bulk at agricultural supply stores and online for under $1 per application. It's also the active compound in oxygen-based laundry boosters. You've had access to this the entire time. Here's exactly how you use it on a kitchen drain. You need 2 tablespoons, not more, not less. More doesn't make it work better, it just wastes powder. Boil a kettle of water and let it sit off the heat for 90 seconds. You want the water hot, but not violently boiling, around 170 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit, which is roughly the temperature where you can hold your hand near the steam but not in it. Boiling water actually reduces the efficiency of the reaction because it off-gases the oxygen too fast. You want slow, sustained oxidation, not a burst. Pour the 2 tablespoons directly down the drain. Immediately follow with 1 cup of the hot water. Just enough to dissolve the powder and push it into contact with the pipe walls. Then do nothing. Don't run the faucet, don't use the sink. Walk away for 4 hours. If you can do this at night before bed, even better. Give it 6 to 8 hours. What's happening during that time is the sustained oxygen release is working through every layer of grease coating the inside of that pipe. You'll hear very faint fizzing if you listen closely. That's the reaction happening. After the dwell time, flush the drain with a full kettle of hot water. You'll notice the water drains faster immediately. Not because you blasted something out, but because the pipe wall is actually clean. If you're dealing with a severe, long-standing blockage, do this treatment twice in the same week. After that, once a month as maintenance. The cost breakdown is almost embarrassing. A 2-pound bag of sodium percarbonate runs about $8 to $10 and contains roughly 40 to 50 applications. That's around 20 cents per treatment. Compare that to a bottle of Drano at $8 to $12 that you're replacing every 4 to 6 weeks. Over the course of a year, the difference is somewhere between $60 and $90 for something that works worse, degrades your pipes over time, and requires you to handle a caustic material that will burn skin and ruin clothing on contact. Sodium percarbonate breaks down into sodium carbonate and water after the reaction. That's it. No caustic residue sitting in your pipes, no chemical that needs special disposal. The byproduct is soda ash, the same compound used in water treatment facilities to balance pH. It's safe for septic systems, won't harm pipe gaskets, won't interact with drain materials. You can use it on chrome drains, plastic P-traps, cast iron, copper, it doesn't matter. There's one more thing nobody tells you about Drano, and it genuinely bothered me when I found it. The chemical reaction between sodium hydroxide and the organic matter in your drain produces heat, sometimes significant heat. In older homes with narrower drain lines, that heat combined with the chemical reaction has been documented as a contributing factor in pipe joint failures. Not common, not dramatic, but real. The reason plumbers are often called after a Drano treatment isn't always because the Drano didn't work on the clog. Sometimes it's because the treatment stressed a weakened joint and the failure accelerated. You paid for the Drano and then you paid the plumber anyway. Sodium percarbonate produces no heat. The oxidation reaction is exothermic, but only mildly. The water temperature drives it more than the reaction itself generates heat. Your pipes don't even notice it's happening. The drain under your kitchen sink is not a mystery that requires a plumber or a $9 bottle of lye gel you have to handle with gloves. It's a grease and soap scum problem, and that problem has a cheap, clean, permanent answer that's been in industrial cleaning supply catalogs for 80 years. 2 tablespoons, hot water, 4 hours, and you're done. 1 bag lasts you almost 2 years. You already know more about your drain chemistry right now than most people who've owned a home for decades. If this kind of practical buried knowledge is useful to you, solutions that were never hidden, just never advertised, there's a lot more of it. Subscribe and you'll catch the next one when it comes out. And if you've got a friend who's been fighting the same slow drain on a cycle of orange bottles and frustration, send this to them. Some things are just worth knowing.